This is Escape Velocity. I'm Crypto Pio, and I'm here with multidisciplinary artist Jonathan Thunder, the creator of Kill the Wabbit and Honey Bear Goes to White Castle, two pieces that have been performing very, very well on Nifty Gateway in a really short time frame. How's it going, Jonathan?
Good, man. Good. Thanks for having me on.
Oh, my pleasure. So yeah, I mean, before we kind of get into the nitty gritty here, I wanted to just have you kind of introduce yourself. Can you talk about how long you've been, an artist professionally, and just a little bit about your background?
Yeah, absolutely. A little bit about me. My name is Jonathan Thunder. I was born in Red Lake, Minnesota on an Ojibwe reservation. I grew up in the Twin Cities, which is Minneapolis and St. Paul, for those not familiar with Minnesota. After high school, I went to school to study painting and creative writing. So I sort of got into the whole using stories to kind of define my artwork. And I kind of knew that I wanted to push it a little further, so I went to school for visual effects and motion graphics, which I kind of landed in the middle and started doing animation, anything like from 2D digital animation to full-on 3D, and worked for a little while, as in a little animation house in downtown Minneapolis, while sort of doing exhibits that were mainly my paintings, and then pretty soon I started to merge the two. And I started to create what I call digital canvases, which are, it's like animated paintings, a lot like you see in the NFT market. It's like a vignette, I like to say, that is animated, that kind of, has like an ethereal, interpretive meaning to it. And I've been doing that now for maybe about 15 years, I would say, give or take. And it's my full-time job.
That's awesome. I didn't know that, you had previous experience with essentially like a 3D moving canvas, which is very much so in line with what the NFT technology brings. So it's almost like you were ahead of your time in a way. You were like, this is a cool idea, and you studied it back in the day before the technology had caught up.
Throughout that entire process of developing what I would say is like the marriage of my painting self with my filmmaker self, animator self, I sort of have gravitated towards what I would consider like a painterly animation style, and sometimes it requires a little bit of 3D work, a little bit of 3D animation. Kill the Wabbit and Honey Bear obviously don't fit that description. Honey Bear is more of like a 2D animation, it was layered up, but for me, it's like, whatever tool, is needed for the job. That's what I'll use.
And one of the things that I wanted to ask you about is whether, your artwork will be made different by NFT technology, if that makes sense. Like if NFT technology is going to give you access to creating artwork that you wouldn't otherwise be able to.
That's a good question. I think that's a discussion that I would like to be a part of. Maybe I don't know, maybe with some artists and some people who are more kind of on the tech side of it, and maybe some people who are kind of on, like the financial side of it, to just try to figure out, that beast, because I've listened to some other artists talk about that, and it's really interesting to hear each artist take. Some of them talk about, like essentially it's meant to be about the artist, right? Like the artist sort of being respected and then acknowledged for their work, as it's on the secondary market for however long, that keeps moving. And I think for me, I don't know where NFT art is going to take me. I'm going to try to remain in my lane, I guess, so to speak. I'm going to try to keep doing what I'm doing, and use that to sort of make my place, as an NFT artist. And I think, if it starts, if I start getting influenced by the other artists on the NFT space, then that seems only natural. I did a residency in Santa Fe, New Mexico, and I remember going down there thinking, I'm not going to paint like a Southwestern. I'm not going to paint like a Southwestern artist. And it was impossible, because you're surrounded by all these artists from the Southwest and these gorgeous, vivid, super colorful paintings and, like top quality world-class artists. So of course it's going to rub off on you. So I guess we'll see, man. Hopefully some of these amazing artists on the space will rub off on me a little bit.
Yeah, and I mean, collaborations are a huge part of the NFT world so far. We've seen a bunch of successful collaborations by, big name NFT artists on their own that have come together. And I think this is another way that technology, allows artists to collaborate in new ways through NFTs. So, speaking of your influences, NFTs aside, and I know you just mentioned that you had influences from the Southwest when you were down there. Overall, what else would you describe as maybe some of your biggest creative influences for any medium?
Well, early on, I was sort of attracted to the surrealists, which, if you look at Salvador Dali's work and you look at some of the NFT art that's coming out today, it has that same spirit, which I love. I'm really attracted to that. So I would say that was kind of my leaping point, into the arts. And it's kind of interesting to see it in this space too.
I know that you have a Native American background. I know that was, definitely involved or Kill the Wabbit and Honey Bear, or at least Kill the Wabbit references it. And so I just wanted to kind of know, I did a little bit of research on you. I know that your ethnic background is the Ojibwe tribe, if I'm pronouncing that correctly.
Ojibwe, pretty close.
Ojibwe, okay.
Ojibwe, yep.
So I was wondering, what are some of the Ojibwe art traditions that we know of or that, have been passed down to you? I'm always just really curious about that sort of thing because there's so much that we don't know and so much that's been lost throughout the time, with all Native American traditions.
Yeah, well, that's a good question. So for me personally, having grown up in the Twin Cities, I wasn't really what I would call immersed in a lot of the traditional cultural practices that are alive today in northern Minnesota, Canada. Ojibwe territory kind of ranges from Minnesota, Canada, Wisconsin, and Michigan, I would say would be probably, the best areas to find Ojibwe nations. And being in the Twin Cities, I was more like, listening to gangster rap or I don't know. I kind of feel like lo-fi started out with Portishead, back in the day and stuff like that. And, a lot of metal. So through my artwork, I had to discover this stuff, like when I do a piece, I'll research and ask people and travel. And when I moved to northern Minnesota, I started to see more of the practice, and I learned about things like bandolier bags are one Ojibwe practice where it's kind of conventional, it's sort of like if you envision a man purse, Ojibwes would travel with like two of them on each side. And on the front of that would be this description of, maybe some kind of like medicine that's made with natural foods and things that you can find around, or maybe something, like a depiction of something that's personal to the person who owns that bandolier bag. And these were set up as kind of like a trading thing, like when I meet you, like perhaps I would trade you one of my bandolier bags for something in your possession, that I need. And I wouldn't necessarily call it a lost form, it's something that's still practiced. But the practical side of that art form being used today, I don't really see it, because, there's a lot of new fashion and stuff like that. That's, probably a little more durable, and it's not worth thousands of dollars that you just carrying it around the city. If you look at there's a style called the woodland style of painting, and that's pretty closely associated with Ojibwe aesthetic and design. Traditionally, I think that was normally used in like the cover of a bandolier bag. You might see it on someone's clothing or something. It was probably made with quill work, which is when you flatten a porcupine quill and then you sort of like stitch that into your whatever your clothing was, and then you make a design. It could be like a little floral design, or like a, I don't know, like a hummingbird or something you might identify with. But that sort of manifested itself in the form of a painting style that is prominent in Lower Canada and maybe Upper Michigan, Upper Wisconsin, I would say. One of the artists that I would say is probably actually solely responsible for that, he influenced hundreds of Ojibwe painters that are working today. And for me personally, I don't know that you really see that in a lot of my work, but maybe the spirit is there, because it's definitely created with a lot of hard line work and like sharp imagery. There's no shy use of depiction in the creation of that work. It's all very bright colors, very stark. I think for me though, when I started designing, I was heavy into ink work. Like I really liked ink work because I was reading a lot of comics at the time. Mad Magazine was a favorite, and I would buy X-Men, Wolverine comics, pretty frequently. And I think that sort of influenced my style, my style of drawing in the beginning. And then later on, that's kind of how I interpreted things when I would create paintings. I'm not exactly sure how that influences my 3D work, because, that's sort of whatever you make it, right? I think, I've always been attracted to that cartoon style. If you remember the movie Who Framed Roger Rabbit?
Yep.
I think for me, that union of 3D shading and a little bit of realism merged with that very cartoony style, and just bringing those two kinds of images together is present in my painting a lot. And I remember at one time I was trying to coin the phrase Roger Rabbitism as like a form of expression. So if you look at some of my work, you'll see, like there's some things that I try to render that are more realistic and more cartoony, so to speak.
Yeah, I feel like Roger Rabbit probably is sort of laid down the framework for stuff that came later, like Space Jam, because it was like, mixing the cartoon and live action, but it actually worked. Like I saw an interview with Eddie Murphy where he turned down Roger Rabbit because he just thought
really?
His quote was that it sounded like some bullshit, is what he said, because it was like cartoons and people. But it's and that must be incredibly difficult to do as like a director, or just someone that's creatively behind that. But if you can make that work and can be a monster hit, and obviously we have an artist here talking about Roger Rabbitism, so. I guess, when did you first hear about NFT technology, and what sparked your interest about it?
Well, I think I first heard about it when these brothers, these twins that were starting kind of a crypto collection, kind of a gallery, had contacted me to talk about NFT artwork with me. And through our discussion and through a lot of research of my own, we ended up working together to kind of develop a strategy where they would sort of handle, my representation, so to speak, and then I would handle the creative end. And that's how I wound up doing a drop on NiftyGateway in mid-March.
Okay, and are those the twins? Are those the Koch Foster twins, the founders of NiftyGateway?
No, actually, it's interesting. So these are the Gallagher twins, Quinn and Ryan Gallagher of Santa Fe, New Mexico, where I studied art and where I've exhibited there multiple times. I think that's what kind of pulled us together because they're collectors of Santa Fe style art. But it's interesting when you think about it, like these brothers who are twins, and then, the twins that own Nifty Gateway, and then, I think it's twins that started
The
Gemini.
Winklevoss twins, yeah.
Yeah. So, there's something there, there's something magic. But yeah, they really kind of like helped me out with it because, I'll just, I'm really honest. I'm the kind of person that can run a $7,000 3D software, but I suck in Microsoft Word, So like I have my weaknesses when it comes to technology, and this was something that was totally not on my radar, and it was a learning experience. I think in January is when I really started to kind of open the lid on it and just kind of look into it, and then it all kind of snowballed from there.
Yeah, and then here we are. I guess from an artist perspective, how could you see the NFT artwork ecosystem developing long term?
That's a good question. I wouldn't say that I'm exactly the person that should be answering that. Obviously, I have nothing but hope for the NFT space, the NFT ecosystem, um, and I hope to be a part of helping nurture that and helping develop it and helping sustain it. So I think there's a lot of people kind of talking about that right now. Like what does it look like, and what would it take to create a sustainable and stable thing. Where there's some longevity there. And I'm more of a, I like to listen until I actually feel like I have something to say. And right now I'm still listening.
We're all listening. It's brand new technology, so I think that that's a great answer. And then I just want to ask, like, what's next for Jonathan Thunder? You had a really successful first drop on Nifty Gateway, a lot of popularity around the piece. Obviously, really interesting market action with the pieces. Now we're kind of talking about the financials a little bit more than the creative side. But one of your pieces, Killed a Wabbit, I did a separate video on that one. Had a really interesting, immediate, like sort of explosion to the upside, which is not common for open editions on Nifty Gateway. Had a little bit of a pullback that kind of went with the macro pullback in the NFT market. Then you did, the Killed a Wabbit video where you essentially destroyed the original canvas. You painted over it and painted another piece, and that sparked another bull run that also affected your other piece. So now both of your pieces are sitting with a massive appreciation for the price floor. I'm sure that there are a lot of big Nifty Gateway fans that are curious what comes next for Jonathan. Is it something that's on Nifty Gateway or another NFT platform? Is it something separate altogether? So what can you kind of share on that?
Well, it's just kind of coming off the week of my first drop, and I've been just paying attention to some of the amazing drops that happened this week, and just trying to see what people are saying about those. As far as moving forward, of course, we're working on another drop. The Gallagher brothers are going to represent me as far as like developing a strategy and trying to make sure that it's not only good for myself as the artist, but for my collectors and investors, and try to make the most out of it, for everybody. And as far as like what the artwork is going to entail, that has yet to be seen. But it's right now, it's like in the very initial developmental stages, because it was a heck of a week. And I would say that I'm still just kind of in shock, as to how that drop went, and how successful it was, and how welcoming and amazing the community was. It was just overwhelming for to get that reception.
Well, I know everyone's really excited about the next drop. And yeah, is there anything else you want to tell people before I let you go?
Let's see. Eat your vegetables.
You heard it here. Jonathan Thunder says, eat your vegetables, ladies and gentlemen. Jonathan, thanks so much. This is Escape Velocity. I'm Crypto Pio. Thanks for watching.